Welcome to Life Happens, where Texans come to protect their legacy and prepare for the second half of life. Join your host, attorney Kim Hegwood with Hegwood Law Group, and our weekly guest as we navigate the challenges that emerge as life happens. Now here's your host, Kim Hegwood.
Good morning. Welcome to Life Happens with me, Kim Hegwood. Our very special guest today is Eddie Orum. Good morning, Eddie.
Good morning, Kim. How are you?
I'm doing excellent. And so I think every day you wake up is always going to be a good day. And so today we're going to talk about male caregiving. I think caring as a man. And so we were talking a little bit earlier before we started the podcast that, I think there's, differences in how, female caregivers and male caregivers sometimes think and do those things. But let's kind of back up just a little bit. And how many males do you think are actually caregivers, in the United States these days?
Actually, Kim, we have research that says that 40% of caregivers are male, and that's beginning to increase because we're beginning to live longer. So we're going to have more age and experience. And about 72% of us say that we weren't prepared when we began caregiving.
No one is ever prepared. And so no matter how much you think you're prepared, you're never prepared. It's so overwhelming. And
That's
so
great.
so when did you become a caregiver?
Actually, I didn't really know what a caregiver was when I became a caregiver. I grew up in a very compassionate family. My grandmother moved into our home. My great aunt moved into our home when I was in high school. And I had my paternal grandmother who actually took in young ladies who were in complex situations. So I grew up with a caregiving culture and assumed that's just kind of what you do. You kind of take care of people. And I had a dad who was one of these people who actually believed that men should be caretakers and caregivers, because at that point in time, it was assumed the sister or the daughter would be the caregivers. And when my aunt became in a position where I needed to assist her, and I moved her into my home, who has cognitive issues, I still didn't really know about caregiving. I just assumed you just take care of people. And then I ran into a couple of resources by accident with ARP, actually, and they began to tell me about the different kinds of ways to be a more effective caregiver. And then I joined another organization, and they too were assisting. So I'm still learning about being a caregiver.
I think that a lot of people come into being caregivers, sometimes by accident. Things just happen. Life gets away from people really fast. Diagnosis and things, and so a lot of people aren't prepared because they, don't necessarily think it's going to happen to them. That mom or dad or aunts, uncles, kind of stuff are going to be okay. And so, from because if you're thinking about, there's only 3% of caregivers that are males, which is, for my, studies and everything, that's not uncommon. That it's a very low number. What do you find that is different for men as caregivers?
I think as men are growing up, we are not allowed the culture of understanding incontinence issues. We do not look for resources of support. We tend to believe that we can handle it all. And if we can't handle it all, we believe that uh, we're not meeting the goals that we should be meeting as men. So when we find ourselves in a situation, it's difficult to talk about it in an entire group. We are concerned about being judged if we don't know the right things to do. Whereas women kind of grew up with a culture of expressing themselves with each other, being able to say, I need this help or I'm having this problem. So I'm finding that when men get together who are in similar situations, such as caregiving, we tend to understand each other better. We tend to be clear with admitting what we cannot do, and what we really need. And I'm finding that men talking with men find it much easier to admit that I'm not able to handle this. And how do you handle it?
Oh, that's not surprising. And so, not at all. And so I think, in general, I think men are raised to be providers. And so, and females a lot of times are raised to be, the caregivers, which, it's a stereotype that shouldn't exist, because I think all of us at some point in time, when my grandparents were declining, my son helped as much as he could. He was a teenager at the time, but, he lifted, my grandfather out of the bed, put him in his wheelchair for me, things that I couldn't do easily. So he's done things with his grandparents, his great grandparents, so he's had a little bit of that, and it was just part of, hey, I need help, so can you do this or this? And it was never an issue, for him as well, so that was never a problem. And so you said you did some research on male caregivers and things like that. And so what do you think is the additional research or additional things that need to be done to support more male caregivers?
I think we probably need to bring more men into the surveys. And we're finding organizations that are growing their male supply. I think also we're asking, what are those issues that we aren't accustomed to, that we can begin talking about? Such as with my mother, I can bathe her without any problems. With my aunt who lives with me, um, it's not very comfortable for me to actually wash her intimate underwear kinds of things. Um, and with the cognitive issues, we need to learn about the different stages that a lot of women know about because they attend the meetings. Men tend to want to solve a problem. And we realize that when we're dealing with cognitive or dementia issues, it's not something we can resolve or solve. And it's very difficult for us to move out of our reality. And when you're dealing with a care receiver, particularly with dementia or Alzheimer's, you have to adapt to their reality. And everything that's factual to us as men may not be factual to the issue that we're dealing with, where we need to provide help. And each day is very different. Men need to understand what happens. And with my aunt, as I look at the stages of dementia, she does not follow those stages. Very healthy. At 89, she can go up 3 flights of stairs. She's always eaten very well. I had to learn that when I put food in a certain place for her, that would work temporarily. And then I had to change what I was going to do. My expectations must grow with how she's feeling. And men need to understand, or we need the knowledge to know that that's going to change every day. The one support group that I'm working with that is a male support group and that I attend their meetings, most of the men are in their 80s and it's their wives that they're taking care of.
Yeah.
And I'm in my 60s because it's my aunt, not my spouse. And I learn a lot from them because they've been there, they've done that. They are really good at helping other men because they can say, "Come here, this is what I know." So there's the conversation, getting more men involved in the research and looking at the issues that men mostly do not know about, such as how do we educate ourselves to dealing with the stages, and even when the stages aren't clearly there with what it says in the textbook, we need to know when things are changing and how to change our attitude and our methods when they change.
Do you find, well, let me kind of back up a minute. I know with my grandparents, my grandfather stopped working to take care of my grandmother. And when I first asked him, I'm like, what kind of help do you need? He said, none. It's my job to take care of her, And so it was like, well, it's enormous. It's an enormous job. We can help. What can we help you, do? You don't have to do it all by yourself. But he had that mentality, which probably a lot of your guys in the support group have, that said it was his job. That's how he was raised, to take care of her, take care of his family, and not ask for help. Do you find that asking for help is one of the hardest things that men tend to not do, basically?
I certainly do, Kim. In fact, we as men often feel like, again, we are to do things, take care of our family, to be there, and asking for help is very difficult because asking for help many times in our mind says, we're not as good and strong as we need to show, and asking for help becomes a weakness. And that's so important because not asking for support also means you're not looking for the resources out there. You have an issue such as if you have the female in the family who's accustomed to the social contacts, and when we're getting together with friends, and when the female partner is not able to do that, then many men are left with, I'm doing this by myself. I don't have the friends to call upon or know how to call upon them. And I don't want my children to know that I can't handle this by myself. So that's an issue that we can't talk about out loud, but we can talk about with each other because you very quickly find that men are going through very similar situations that we can admit to each other. But it's difficult to admit when women are around that we're not the man that we project ourselves to be.
And you would be surprised to know that most women, would love to help and don't think any less of a man asking for help, because that's just who we are. So it sounds like that there's a really a huge need for more male only support groups. Is that what you're finding?
I agree. We're much freer. We can be much more honest because we know that we have weaknesses, but we're not good at admitting that to other people. And I think, too, in my situation, I'm learning from the other men because, as I said earlier, I didn't really know what a caregiver was. I just, as a man, this is what you do, you take care of your family. Then you realize that there are lots of things that you've been doing, getting medication, helping someone mow their lawn, taking someone to the doctor, helping someone with their banking. These are issues that we've always done, but we just thought it was kind of a social responsibility when we really need to know that's what a caregiver does. And the more we know that we can and are caregivers and we can speak out, as I said, I accidentally fell into getting support services and reaching out and becoming a volunteer. And that was simply because I received an email that said, come to this place, meet caregivers, and we'll serve you dinner. So I went for the food. And I was shocked once I got there and realized that as people went around introducing themselves and telling their story, it was like, oh, that's me. And then I realized that in many cases, you're caregiving for someone who might have a personality disorder. And it's not that they have Alzheimer's. It's, and then how do you deal with difficult personalities? And and I actually had to figure out how I was affected by having a parent who had a personality disorder. And I look at a lot of things that are very good about me because of that. And I see, in fact, me being an enabler, I believed in keeping family secrets. So I would take care of people, and being an educator, that's all good. But taking care of someone and being a caregiver is very different from being an enabler. And I had to learn that.
Yeah, those are all difficult lessons, and to learn whether you're caregiving or not, as far as that. So that's so tell our listeners, how do they find you? So hopefully they can get on a support group, or if there's women watching this, they can get their husbands or other people, spread the word. How can they find you?
There's several ways to find us. Discovering You has a website that you can actually go online and find them. You also have ARP, which provides a lot of support, and also the Alzheimer's Association. But my email is attached along with the Discovering You information on the screen, and you'll find us at www.discoveringyou.information. And Discovering You is an organization that was actually supported by ARP with caregiving, and they began to look at mental health issues. I'm a volunteer for them. And out of my interest, I first wanted to do a male caregiving group. And I realized the best way to do that is to begin a male support group. And caregiving becomes a part of that because most men who are not caregivers do not see themselves as having to be a caregiver. But if we begin male support, and there's several men that I've met throughout the community in the Fifth Ward, Northeast Houston areas that believe in helping, whether it's a mental health issue, whether it's a hurricane support issue, disaster support, and getting together as men is the first step. Getting together and talking about caregiving is the second step. And I'd like to see us prepare younger men so we know to expect to take care of our parents. One of the hardest things about caregiving is that we never prepare ourselves. We think I'm not going to be needed. My parents are always going to be healthy. And by the time we realize that, we've missed several steps. So I think it's important to know what's happening, why it's happening, from a mental standpoint, whether it's depression, we think, or whether we think it's aging, the physical aspect, mobility, learning how to actually test your parents if you think there might be mobility issues. We have the driving issue. Sometimes just take a drive with your parents or loved ones and see how it's going on. And you finally reach the stage of how do you take the keys away? How do you begin that conversation? And all of those are skills and knowledge and sharing that if we're not in some type of support group, we don't have those conversations.
And so, Eddie, all good information. And so I'm so glad you came on the show today. We look forward to talking to you again on more topics in the future. And so thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thanks for tuning in to this week's episode of Life Happens with Kim Hegwood. Be sure to tune in every Thursday at 10 a.m. wherever you listen to your podcast as we navigate through the challenges that emerge as life happens. The content of this podcast does not establish an attorney-client relationship or constitute attorney-client privilege, legal, medical, financial, or any other professional advice.